So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Provincial Office webinar. And I hope you're all safe and well. A special welcome to those of you who are joining us from outside the province this evening, from Essex, Cumberland and Westmoreland, Cheshire and East Lancashire. It's very nice to have you here and anyone else who I've missed. So thank you very much for being here. My name's Andrew Rydell, and I'm the Provincial Deputy Grand Secretary. To today's session. If you haven't gathered already, Hermes is going to have a significant impact on Masonic administration. The man best placed to tell us about it and give us an update on what's been going on is Nigel Codron. Nigel is a business development consultant and a past assistant provincial Grand Master of the province of Middlesex, and he's heading up the Hermes delivery team. Nigel, welcome once again to the province of West Lancashire. I've said too much already. I'll hand straight over to you.
Thank you very much indeed. So firstly, thank you everybody for giving up your evening to come and hear about Project Hermes. I will start by just giving you, actually no, in fact, I'm going to start by saying, if you do have questions, would you please either, as Andrew says, put them in the chat box, or you just save them until afterwards. I won't be stopping to answer any questions while we're going through it. Otherwise, I'll be here all night doing it, and I'm sure you wouldn't want that. So by way of a brief introduction, as Andrew said, I am a past Assistant Provincial Grand Master in the province of Middlesex. I was initiated nearly 32 years ago into a lodge in Harrow. Didn't really know too much about it, but went through all of the offices within 7 years to become master. Was picked out reasonably young and was made a provincial deputy GDC in the craft, then went on to be provincial deputy DC in the Royal Arch, served for a 7-year term in both offices, and then was very fortunate to be promoted to provincial DC, and in Middlesex that is a double header, and I did that role for 6 years. So and then after I stepped down from that, I was made an ABGM. So I've had a lot of use of ceremonial, but I hasten to add that I've never ever been a lodge secretary, and since I've been on the Hermes project, I must say it's been an absolute eye-opener, and I congratulate you all on having to put up with some of these archaic systems that Hermes is looking to address. So back in July, I did a talk, which was an introduction to Hermes. Andrew's asked me to come back and do an update, but I am going to cover some of the same ground. So those of you that were on the presentation in July, apologies, but I'll run through certain bits of it quite quickly. But for those of you that weren't on it, hopefully this will be a very interesting overview of what we're doing and obviously where we are. So let's start by what is Hermes. So we've chosen these words very carefully. This has been designed specifically for lodge secretaries and chapter scribes Ezra. Okay, so this is for you. The provincial teams and others at UGLE will be using Adelphi, but you will be the users of Hermes. And it's a web-based application, so that means that you access it through your web browser, and you will actually be able to see for the first time all of the information that is actually held on the Adelphi database, which is the Grand Lodge database of all of the members. You will be able to actually carry out a lot of the processes that you've been doing on paper forms now online, and I'm going to explain a lot more about how that will work. But if this is going to make your life A, easier, and B, a hell of a lot quicker. There are some paper forms that will still be in existence. Those no doubt will be dealt with in phase 2, as we do see that there will be a further rollout of Hermes once this goes live. And just to be specific, if you are a secretary of 2 units, or you are a secretary and a scribe, you will have a separate login for each of those units. So when you log in, let's say lodge 1, 2, 3, 4, you will only see the information relating to that particular lodge. And if you want to log into chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll log in with a different username and password. So very briefly, who's involved? The project team consists of Tony Keating, who's the project manager.
Nigel, sorry, I think your screen may have frozen. I think you need to reshare at the moment. We're still on slide 1.
Oh, has it changed?
No.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh, it changed. Can you see it now?
No, you might just need to stop sharing and reshare. I don't know.
Uh-oh. It's the wonders of modern technology. Hold on. Okay. Okay, is that better? Can you see the first screen? What is Hermes?
Yes, we can see that, but it hasn't gone onto full screen. It hasn't gone onto the slideshow. It's just on the kind of PowerPoint edit screen, so to speak.
Oh, God. I wonder why that is. Can you see who is involved? Can you see the second one?
No.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay. Can you see now that? Maybe it's
we can see slide 2 now at the moment.
okay. Can you see slide 3?
Yes.
Okay, let me leave it in this view and then maybe that'll help. Okay, so my role, I know you gave me a very grandiose title, Andrew, but actually I am the business analyst, and now that part of the project has completed, I've now moved over to the training and support team. So I've kind of given myself both titles, but I've been on the project from day one. Both Tony and I sit on and report into the project steering group, and you can see a veritable who's who in provinces as well as UGLE members. And Liz obviously recognises Stephen Blank, the PGM for Cheshire. So actually it's a shame because I don't really want it to do this because let's just try 1 second. Can you see that now, Andrew?
No, we can't. No.
Okay. All right. Shame, because it's all supposed to filter in line by line, but okay. Sure. Well, so we'll stop everyone reading the screen. So at the outset of the project, the project steering group decided that it would be sensible to involve some provinces and districts because they have obviously a lot more front-end expertise in the way that the different regions are being managed. So assisting with the project are Met or London, Hampshire and Isle of Wight, as you can see, Cheshire, Bristol, and 2 districts, that's Cyprus and Eastern Archipelago. And the purpose of their input really, and we've run several workshops, is for those 6 regions to input on current processes to assist us with developing the new requirements. And now we are moving forward to reviewing and testing the Hermes platform, which is already in development now and looking very, very good. And of course, they're there to support us throughout. And as some of the people on this call will know, the provincial and district rulers are regularly updated via Bugle. And I can tell you all that every province and every district has actually now signed off all of the processes. Hence, we've moved forward to development. So for the secretaries and scribes on this call, when we started, the first thing we looked at is what are the processes or the main processes that are carried out in paper form. So as you can easily see on the screen, the reg form for a candidate, a joiner, the LP&A 5, installation and annual returns, applications for dispensations, and changing a member status. So some of those are done online. I think your province, Andrew, are pretty developed and you do a lot of that stuff online. A lot of them aren't and are still sending in paper forms that record that information. So just by way of giving you, bring a little bit of humor to this presentation, let me show you what I spent the first 6 months of the project doing. So in a normal world, this is what we call the green lane. So 80% of the paperwork that will meet this criteria. So if you take an initiate, he fills out the reg form, he sends it in to the secretary, signed by the proposer and seconder. He's actually proposed and seconded in open lodge. He's balloted and initiated either at that meeting or the next meeting. They then send in the papers to the provincial office who review it. Most of the forms that come in are correct, but there are a hell of a lot of them that aren't. And then with the make sure the check's there, and then it's forwarded to UGLE. So this is the process when it goes well. This is the process when it doesn't. And you'll see here, I know you're not supposed to see what it says in the boxes, but you can get the gif, the drift of it is the light blue in the second column is lodge, the turquoise blue is the province, and the dark blue is UGLE. And you'll see lots of lines crisscrossing as those lovely paper forms make their way to and fro while everyone is sorting out all the queries. The big difference, of course, between what Hermes will deliver and the current process is this form comes in once the ceremony has happened. And obviously what's going to happen with Hermes is this will all be front-ended. So again, it will alleviate many, many of the issues that currently occur. This is the process for the annual return. Likewise, a little less boxes, but still lots of toing and froing, as many secretaries and scribes use this process to inform the province of either deceased members, resignations, or even exclusions. Again, I'll explain more fully how that's going to work under Hermes. And my personal favorite for the scribes on this call, there is the process for an exaltee. And again, as you can see, an awful lot of boxes going backwards and forwards. So this whole process took 6 months to map out because although I estimated we would only have 7 processes, when I went round with Tony to do the workshops with every pilot region, unfortunately, I couldn't get to Kuala Lumpur to see Eastern Archipelago, so we had to settle for a video conference. It turned out that everyone has their own way of doing this. And I actually ended up doing 42 different process maps to make sure that we captured everything before we were able to move forward to the what we call the 2B process. So a adjunct of the project steering group was the 2B working party. That's chaired by Stephen Blank, PGM for Cheshire. And once again, Tony and I sit on that. And you can see again, I don't need to read them out, who has been involved in this process. So we report again into the project steering group. And as a result of what we've been putting together, Graham Redman has had to make many changes to the Book of Constitutions. And those of you that have already seen the paper of business for tomorrow's QC, there are a lot of changes that are going to be made to the Book of Constitutions. And that relates directly to the change in process that's happening from Hermes. Okay, so here's the real nitty gritty. So this is what Hermes will do. So we've divided it into 4 distinct areas. As you can see, membership, journey, finance, and analytic. So the membership function, as I said before, the first time you'll be able to view, edit, and update your member details. Change their address, change their phone number, change their email address. And those three particular areas are going to be validated information. So we have a piece of software that's now added to the Adelphi program. So if you put in a brother's new email address, it will ping through to Adelphi and will ensure that it is a valid address. If it isn't, you'll be advised of that, and you'll need to go back to the member to make sure he's given you the right one, or perhaps you've made a typo. All of those changes will be notified to the member. So if he changes his address, he sends it to you, you enter it into Hermes, and then once you've done it, it will update on Adelphi. So if you're a member of multiple lodges or chapters, it's going to update for everyone. It's not just going to be on yours, it's in the main database, and that member will be sent an email, much as you will see today. If you update your details on any website, it sends you a confirmation email. And of course, if that's not correct, you'll need to go back and tell the secretary. You will be able to extract and download a list of your member contacts. So one of the things that came out from the workshops was about having all of the member information in one place. And obviously, if you imagine, if I'm a member of, as I am, 9 lodges and 5 chapters, you would expect that every one of those would have a different list of members. Now everything is in a central location. So if you want to send out a summons to your members for a meeting, you just log into Hermes, download all the email addresses, so you'll have the latest contacts. You don't need to keep anything yourself and copy and paste it into your email client. So that way we're all ensuring that everyone has got A, the most up-to-date information, and B, it complies with GDPR. It's very safe, very secure, and obviously it's covered by all sorts of security measures within the UGLE data center. You'll also be able to update the membership status of your member. So that will be, obviously, as you can see, a resignation, cessation under 148 or Reg 71, as well as deceased. You'll also be asked to corroborate how you heard about the death and a little kind of notes field. So that will make a lot easier for everyone to understand how that has been heard. And then, of course, as well, you have the functionality for an exclusion under 181 and election to honorary member, which follow, obviously, as you know, a ballot within the lodge, and that will be automatically updated via a post-meeting report that I'll explain a bit more about. So again, you've got total control over the members of your lodge or chapter. You don't need to send in anything anymore to the provincial office. You're going to do it yourself. And finally, you'll be able to complete and submit your installation return online. So after your installation meeting, you'll just go via the post-meeting report to the installation return. It'll be very simple. If you imagine today on Adelphi, it's been made very simple. So if you are a senior deacon going up to junior warden, you just click next to my name, if I'm a member of your lodge, promote, and it'll automatically move me from SD to JW. Likewise, if you're staying in post as secretary, next to your name, you just click reappoint, and that populates the field for the new officers. So an installation return should take you no more than 5 minutes to complete. And you'll also be able to input, up to 5 or 6 stewards, your Royal Arch rep, your centre rep, all of those little offices that are being captured currently on a provincial return that aren't captured on a UGLE return. There'll only be one. You only do it once, and that's going to populate into Adelphi. So again, we're going to have a lot more records as Hermes develops. So everything will be in one place. Okay, so the journey function. So there is a new process that we are introducing, and this will be for a candidate for an initiation or for joining a lodge. So if you are holding, well, let's take what we call a sponsored prospect. So that is somebody that is being introduced via the lodge. You will get his details from his proposer. His basic details will be his first name, his surname, his email address, his phone number, and his date of birth. You'll put that into Hermes, and he will be flagged as a sponsored inquiry. Once the lodge have informally interviewed him and he decides that he wants to move forward, he will be sent a hyperlink to the online registration form. So there is no more written form, there is no more signatures. No wet signatures are going to be required for a registration form. The only wet signature that you'll ever get will be when the candidate signs the declaration book prior to his initiation or exaltation. So you should keep hold of that, obviously, but everything else is being done online. He'll also complete any declaration if appropriate, and he will submit that into effectively into Adelphi. What will then happen is that he will be formally interviewed. We're trying to follow the members pathway process, and he will be formally interviewed, and then following that interview, depending on custom and practice in each province or each lodge, he may well attend a few social events so everyone gets to know him, or he may well obviously already have been known to the lodge. The secretary will then attribute the name of his proposer and seconder on Hermes, and again it will automatically send an email to the proposer and seconder, asking them A, to confirm the content of the registration form, B, to confirm how long that they've known the prospect, and C, to make sure that you digitally sign, or you're just going to approve that you think he's a fit and proper person to be made a member of the lodge, the same statement that exists today. Once the proposer and seconder have done that, it'll automatically trigger an email to the worshipful master, and he, again, using a hyperlink, will be able to log in, see the online registration form, and again add his little authorization to the process, and then that chap will be flagged as a candidate and will then be able to be put on the summons to be initiated. And I'm going to explain how we deal with that a little later. So again, this process of what we've termed the pre-Masons table applies to a joiner as well as to a raw prospect candidate. Okay, so you'll go through the same process. So moving forward to a joiner, okay, so no more clearance certificates. Rule 158 has been removed or modified. It's going to be applicable, as you may have seen, Andrew, it'll be applicable for foreign joiners, but certainly for joiners from a UGLE lodge, no need for any clearance certificates. And there is a new digital process that will replace it. So hypothetically, Andrew, let's just say I'd like to join City of Lancaster Lodge number 281, and you very kindly invited me to join. You are the secretary, and all I need to do is to give you my Grand Lodge reference number. And some of you will be saying to yourselves, I've absolutely no idea what my Grand Lodge ref number is. You can find that on your Grand Lodge certificate, or alternatively, if you can't find that, some of us may be guilty of that. If you can't find it, all you need to do is to ask your own lodge secretary, and obviously via Hermes, he'll be able to tell you your Grand Lodge number, which is a unique reference number. So I give my Grand Lodge reference number to Andrew. He clicks on Hermes, he goes to Joiner, he puts my Grand Lodge number in there, clicks search, and it comes up with my very basic details. Two things will happen at that point. The first thing that will happen is that it will send me an email saying, Nigel, you have applied to join City of Lancaster Lodge. Is that correct? And I will need to click on a hyperlink to say that is correct, because you can imagine some unscrupulous secretaries, obviously those that are not on this call tonight, who might fancy having a look at Peter Lowndes' Masonic file, or your provincial Grand Master's file. So you won't be able to see it unless the individual has actually confirmed that's okay. Again, obviously under GDPR rules, we're bound to do that. So Andrew then sees my basic details. He sends me a link to the online registration form, which is already pre-populated with all of my information. Obviously my address, my phone number, etc., my employer, all of that information is already pre-populated, as well as the names of all the lodges I am or was ever a member of. And then I will be asked to confirm that all the information on there is correct. If not, I'm able to edit it or make some notes, and it actually updates the file, which also is another way of ensuring that our data is kept continually up to date. And then I click submit. As it comes into Adelphi, very cleverly, what Adelphi does now, it sends an email to the secretary of all of the lodges where I am a current subscribing member, asking whether I am considered in arrears. Now, this was a real hot potato when we were putting this process together, because there's lots of definitions of in arrears. If your lodge subscription is due on the 1st of January and you haven't paid it on the 2nd of January, technically you are in arrears. And if we adopted that principle, I think we may well have 200,000 in arrears flags. So we decided that wasn't a good idea. Then we looked at the new bylaw changes that most units are putting through, in that they are making a 6-month time frame for a member to be considered for exclusion. And we thought, well, maybe that's a good point to automate the process. But then it meant us integrating all of the lodge and chapter bylaws into Hermes or into Adelphi, which is not something that is an easy task, and is something that we're definitely going to be considering for Adelphi Part 2 or Part 3, because we think that would be useful, not because of the in arrears statement, but because of actually being able to update your lodge and chapter bylaws via the Hermes process. So that's coming. So in the end, what we settled on, which we all believe is the fair and reasonable way, is that we're leaving this in the hands of the lodge secretary and treasurer. Because as we all know, and I don't know whether it happens in West Lancs, but I know many lodges where there are members who pay their subscription in 6-month installments, in 10-month installments, even 12-month installments. So if you know that the member has paid his dues that way for the last 10 years, he's unlikely to default. So we're asking the secretary at this point, when you're joining a lodge, to actually go on to Hermes, and obviously having spoken to the treasurer initially, and if he is in arrears, you put a flag on. That's all you have to do, and that will flag up to Andrew saying, oh, it won't say which unit, but it will obviously make Andrew aware that the joiner is in arrears. And obviously, if you have nothing to say, if I'm not in arrears, you don't have to do anything, and that's absolutely fine. And obviously, if it's a lodge where I was a member, it will only email the secretary if there is an arrears flag on there, asking me to confirm those arrears are cleared. So again, all of this is going on in the background. It's completely automated, so you don't need to worry about anything. And it basically, we're giving a 14-day window. So from the moment I submit the online registration form for my joining, there's a 14-day window for any secretary to flag in arrears. Otherwise, I'm just registered as, in good standing. So that's how we're going to deal with it. And as we all know, trying to get clearance certificates from numerous lodges is a royal pain in the backside. So this will happen much faster. Okay, so your LPNA 5 is now disappearing. You will no longer have to fill out that form after the candidate has been raised. So all you'll need to do is, on the post-meeting report, is confirm that the brother was actually raised to the degree of a Master Mason, including the traditional history, and it will automatically trigger an email into registration. Sorry, excuse me. Pre-populated with all of the data. So his initiation, passing and raising date will all be already there, recorded in Adelphi via Hermes. And it will tell you that the application has gone through. You'll be able to see it on the dashboard. And within 3 or 4 days, a week maximum, you'll be notified that that actually has been printed and posted, and it's on its way out to you. You'll also be able to offline via email inform registration whether you want it posted out to a different place, but ordinarily most of them go to you as the lodge secretary. Again, thoroughly automated, and likewise for an exaltation, once you've submitted the information in the post-meeting report, the same process will be triggered. So you don't have to do anything specific, it'll happen automatically. And lastly, in the journey function, as we've talked about, it's going to be recording the candidate's level. So from candidate to Master Mason, and various welcoming messages, information will be sent, but that will be managed at provincial level rather than at UGLE level. Shame it's not working on the, it all had these lovely little animations that I'd created. I don't know what's gone wrong with it, but hey ho. Okay, finance function. So this again is a big change that's coming. So you will be generating the annual return yourself. You will not be sent the form by UGLE registration anymore. You will be responsible, and you will be obviously notified via Hermes that it is due. You will be tasked to check that your membership is up to date, including obviously specifically deceased, resignations, etc., to make sure that they're all recorded. You'll get a month prior to the return being due, and then on the day that it is due, let's say it's January the 1st, you'll get another reminder saying it's now available to be generated. You log in, you go to annual return, up will come the amount that you are that's payable to UGLE or SGC. Wash my mouth out with soap. If West Lancs goes along with the dates of the lodges and chapters annual return end of year, then that's fine. You'll do both of them simultaneously. If it's at a separate date, then obviously you'll have to do 2 returns at different times, but the same principle will apply.
Yes, we work on the calendar year, so
Right.
it will be
Okay.
too long.
Fine. Okay. So if your lodge year end or chapter year end is not the 31st of December, then at another point you'll need to do the UGLE or SGC return. But again, very simple process, provided you've kept all your memberships up to date throughout the year. Again, doing the annual return will be, a 15-minute job. Again, the big difference that you'll notice if you've read the second line is that it's not now the master that is going to approve the annual return, but it is the treasurer. So once the secretary goes through, generates the contents, he will then send it to the treasurer, who will double check it, and he will click an approve button, and that will be uploaded directly into Adelphi. It will record the date that it was sent. It will record the amount that is due. And as you can imagine, it will record when you pay. However, what we had thought about initially was an online payment portal, which unfortunately is not available to us in the way that we want it. So you will be continuing to pay your annual dues by backs or by check. Either is acceptable. Obviously, more and more lodges and chapters are certainly paying online. And a big change that's coming when Hermes goes live is that all fees for registration and dispensations will be added to the UGLE annual return. So you will not have to pay for an initiate or a foreign joiner or for an exaltee when he joins. They will be automatically added to your annual return. And again, it's up to each province and district to decide whether they want to follow that. And obviously, we've got no way of determining whether they should or they shouldn't.
At the moment, we actually absorb all the Grand Lodge registration fees and Grand Chapter registration fees, pay them on behalf of the lodges and reclaim them back on the provincial chapters. So actually, as it stands at the moment, in this province, they don't send fees with Form Ps anyway. So it will be it'd be effectively the same, but it would be on the Grand Lodge fees, not on not on the province. And it's cut down administration in the office by an awful lot doing that.
Yes, well, exactly. You'll just be doing one payment per year rather than, several. So, and a lot easier to manage. So that's what's going to happen. Okay, so some other little funky things that we've added into the functionality. So you will be completing an attendance register after every meeting. It will record, obviously, in attendance, and you will also record an apology. So only two little buttons to click. You will be able to fill out the attendance register pre-meeting, because as people send in their apologies or confirm their attendance, you'll be able to do. Most lodges have an average membership of 25 to 30 members, so it's not too arduous even if you do leave it till after the event. You will also notice it says it will flag to the almoner. So if a member hasn't turned up and hasn't apologized for 2 consecutive meetings, it will flag to the almoner. And we're not trying to do his job for him, far from it, but having visited many, many lodges over 32 years nearly, I'd be a very rich man if I had £1 for every time an almoner stood up and said, I've got nothing to report, Worshipful Master, because nobody's told me anything. So this will be a good way of actually flagging to the almoner that he might like to call Nigel and just see whether he's okay and what's the reason why he suddenly stopped attending. I mean, it may well be, a job for your lodge membership officer. We're not being that prescriptive, but we think it should flag to the almoner first. You will also have the option to record charitable contributions. Again, this is new. We are not being big brother about this, but we are fully aware. This is not personal contributions from members. This is the donations that lodges and chapters are making to worthy causes, because obviously we know, obviously when you're in festival and through the relief chest, we know how much money is being collected, but we're sure that an amount equal to what is going through the relief chest is being given by lodges and chapters to local charities. And we think it would be very useful to have that recorded somewhere. Certainly in Middlesex, you know, the visiting officer report would contain that, but it just got filed as a piece of paper. But here we'll have a central database. So potentially the provincial charity steward will have access to understand where the monies are going to local charities, as well as your comms officer, who I'm sure could maximize any press coverage based on the amount of money that's being given within the province. So that's a new function. Okay, the resignation. Now, this is again a new process that's being introduced. So some of you may be aware that in the Book of Constitutions, it says when a resignation is read out in open lodge, the members, if they so wish, can hold a ballot for him to reconsider, and he would have a 60-day window in which to do so. So we've now made this more front-ended. Firstly, a resignation can now happen by email without a following letter. We managed to get Graham to concede that after battering him for a few months. So yes, and if you'll see the paper of business, one of the changes to the Book of Constitutions is about email. So that will be able to happen. So let's take, I'm sorry to say this, Andrew, but let's take me resigning from the City of Lancaster Lodge. So I send in an email to Andrew saying, regrettably, I need to resign. I don't have time to come up to Lancaster to attend the meetings. So Andrew will log into Hermes, go to my members record. He'll go to the status update. He'll change to resignation. There'll be a drop-down list of reasons. So he'll just select, you know, time or whatever we've come up with. And it will be from the date that he receives the email, or it could be a member resigning at the end of the financial year. So for the first time, we will be able to record, or you will be able to record a resignation date in the future. Somebody moving out of the country, etc. So as that is uploaded via Hermes into Adelphi, it will automatically send an email to your provincial resignation or retrieval team, or exit team. Everyone calls it something different, and they will be alerted of my resignation. And the 60-day clock starts from that date. So they have 60 days to contact me to see whether they can find me another lodge if required. Can they resolve the dispute? And I dare say some of you may know this, but often the resignation reason a member gives to the secretary is rather different to the one that he gives to the exit team. Sometimes a rather pompous and over exuberant director of ceremonies may be the cause of that. So there's all sorts of reasons why. And again, the 60-day window kicks in. And if I don't change my mind within that time, that's fine, it all lapses, but the resignation date is still, let's say I resign on the 20th of December, the 60 days goes into the new year. That doesn't mean that you're going to have to pay the annual dues for me as a member in the following year. It's configured from the 20th of December, but I've still got that 60-day window. So that's a new process, and we believe that that should definitely help in the retention of members who, you know, maybe just feel a bit cheesed off, and maybe they want to join another lodge, or again, if they're moving from Lancashire to Middlesex, it will also, if you put in the new address, it'll also send a notification to the membership officer in Middlesex saying you've got somebody coming down to your province, and they will get in touch with me. So again, retention is a very important part of what Hermes can deliver. And finally, you will be able for the first time to record in Hermes who has done what in each ceremony. So every ceremony is broken down into several component parts. You will be able to enter the member's or a visitor's name against that particular part of the ceremony. If you break the, let's say it's the principal sojourner's role, you break that into 4 parts. You will be able to put in the names of 4 companions to record who's done that. And that will populate the member's record. So where we've put here, it'll assist in recommendations for first appointments or promotions. One of the biggest bugbears that we heard from the workshops from secretaries and scribes is that filling out the application or recommendations, they've got to trawl through the minute books, who did what was their attendance record. Obviously on Hermes, you'll just push a button and you'll be able to print out his attendance record and what he's done in each of the ceremonies. Obviously that'll take some time to populate, but you know, you can imagine how much time saving that will be. Obviously you've already got the information of who's done what, because you'll have done that for the minutes. So it'll just take you a couple of extra minutes to record that detail in the post-meeting report. Okay, so what we learnt again from the workshops was the number of summonses that are arriving at the provincial office that are not compliant with the Book of Constitutions. And actually, this did actually come specifically from Cheshire. So Liz, obviously, that your members have browbeaten you into submission, and we're now going to provide this tool to enable you to accurately populate the summons. So it's called the business agenda. So you'll log into Hermes. You will you'll know which is your next meeting. Let's say you've got an initiation to perform. So you'll click on from a drop-down list of the items to populate. You'll say to initiate, you know, the item will be to initiate a brother. And then you click on that, it'll automatically take you to the candidate space. If you remember, we talked about the candidate status in Freemason, and it'll display the names of all of those potential candidates that are eligible to join. You'll click on his name, okay, and it'll actually upload that information into a Delphi and return you with the exact wording. So my name, my date of birth, my address, my proposer, my seconder, my employer. So all of that information, because it's already recorded in the member record, in the Freemasons table, it'll automatically populate. And if you're going to just ballot, not going to initiate that night, likewise, you just do that and it'll populate it with the information. Let's say you're doing that the same night as your installation meeting, so you can record multiple items on your agenda. It'll upload into a Delphi, return you with a Word doc or an RTF doc, and you'll copy and paste that into your own summons. So we're not going to recreate your summons, we're creating the agenda items. And there are 19 specific items that will need to be compliant, both in Craft and Royal Arch. Obviously, things like to open the lodge, read the minutes, the risings, etc. You'll just do those yourselves, but these are the ones that do need to be accurate. So you've done your agenda, you've done your summons, you now need to send it to your provincial office, which you will continue to do. After the meeting, you'll log in and you will go to the post-meeting report. So let's say you're initiating Mr. Joe Bloggs. The first question it will ask you is, was the ballot successful? If you are balloting or initiating on the same night. If it's, you'll click on yes, it'll then say, did the ceremony take place? You'll say yes, okay, and that will again change the record for that particular candidate and will push him into the members table. And that way we're recording throughout his journey from entered apprentice, as you can see, to worshipful master and exaltee to first principal, because obviously with the installation return, you're also recording which offices he's holding. And these processes are inextricably linked, because what you put in the agenda will be asked to report on in that post-meeting report. And likewise, if you go to the next meeting, you create the agenda to pass Brother Joe Bloggs. Haven't recorded him as being initiated, you won't be able to do that, because you'll have to have recorded him as being initiated. So those processes will work in tandem together. And lastly, the dispensation process again will all be done online through the Hermes platform. And if it's a dispensation to be given by the province, they will get a notification. They'll be able to access it via Adelphi. They can log in, approve it. It'll send you a PDF attachment, all pre-populated, pre-signed. Obviously, if they don't approve it, you'll get a message saying computer says no or something like that. And you will be able to read it out if you need it, or just refer to it if that's all that's required for that particular dispensation. So again, much more simple. You'll also be able to track whether it has been approved, not approved, where it is in the process. So everything will be a lot more transparent. Okay, so just to wrap up, we've got 13 processes that are covered by Hermes. This is what we are now programming into the platform. It's been actually carried out by an external company who are experts in Oracle Apex applications. And I've actually seen a few of the screens. I'm testing them actually at the moment, and they all look really, really good. So I think I don't need to give you any more information on that. What I will just talk to you about now is what's going on now. So this is a real update from where we were last time. So there is a transition and rollout working party, again, chaired by Richard Gutteridge. Once again, Tony and I are on there, and you can see who else is on there. We decided it would be really useful to have the Met Secretary and 2 provincial secretaries on the committee. That way we're also getting a lot of information and about their readiness and how they are applying themselves to the rollout. So this is a key part of what we are developing now. So we are just starting now on the training packages. So we will be training the provinces and the districts, and they in turn will be training all of the secretaries and scribes in preparation for the go live date. And as you can see, we've got a very comprehensive list of training items, written guides. I mean, everyone likes to look at these differently. There'll be videos, there'll be e-learning, and there will also be a sandbox, which basically means you can log in and actually practice using it on dummy data. And all of this information will be included. Once you're live with Hermes, you'll still be able to access all of this within the help system. So, you know, if you're handing over to your successor, you'll be able to help them, or, you know, that may well be a provincial responsibility. Everybody does this differently, but there will be a lot of training guidance available. And as regards support, first line support will come from your provincial office and their support teams. But obviously anything that is of a more serious nature will be escalated up to UGLE. And we will be able to give you a lot more information of exactly how that will work, obviously nearer to the launch. But we have thought about all of these different elements. Now, the question on everybody's lips is, when is this going live? So anyone who's got an IT background knows that most projects always overrun, but I can currently tell you that we are planning on rolling out in the second half of next year. We're anticipating that the pilot regions will be doing their extensive user testing probably in July, and then we'll start rolling out August, September, and we're aiming to complete by the end of next year. So in terms of West Lancs, you will be somewhere between those two dates. And I've taken on board, Andrew, a conversation we've had, and I'm pushing for you to be one of the early pioneers of this too. So behold, beware secretaries and scribes, okay? Andrew's nailed his colours to the mast. Okay, so if you've got any questions on what I've said today and we can't answer them in the time we've got allocated, please email this email address, hermes@ugle.org.uk. That comes directly through to me and to Tony, and we'll endeavour to get back to you within a couple of days on anything that we're not covering. And before I hand back to Andrew, can I just leave you all with one final thought? Thank you, brethren and companions, for listening, and I'll now hand you back to Andrew.
Nigel, thank you very much. There's been a few questions that have come in. I've been replying to some of them that have come on. The main one, as you would usually expect, is regarding those members which don't use or have access to email, which I know is a question that you will have addressed many times. Would you like to talk about that?
I would. Okay, so in today's world, it is likely that a vast majority of our members do have an email address. For any of you that have read the paper of business for tomorrow's meeting, you may have noticed that there's some wording. I can't remember the exact rule, but it does say that the master, the secretary, and the treasurer are expected to have an email address. And those three offices will not be able to be fulfilled with a member who doesn't have either a personal email address or access to an email address from probably a family member. That other email address cannot be the lodge secretary. It absolutely cannot be. So that is something that we've been very careful about. The proposer and seconder, as you've gathered from my talk, will also need to have an email address. And if they don't have an email address, they either have to get access to one or they have to choose another proposer or seconder. I noticed Tony saying that was disgraceful. I'm sorry, Tony, but that is actually the way it is. And we've batted this around many, many, many times. And I'm afraid this is what is going to happen. The whole system is reliant on digital communication, and therefore it's imperative that the members who are involved in these processes do have an email address. I can't be more specific than that, unfortunately. I know it's going to cheese a lot of people off, but you know, really 90%, 90 more, 97% of our members have an email address.
Yes. I'm glad you answered that, not me. There are a couple of kind of process questions which I think will get kind of answered when we get into the training in terms of it. But can you just the preparation of the business, so the pre-meeting business summons generator, effectively,
Yeah. Yeah.
that will, at the back end of it, when it comes to doing the post-meeting report,
Yes.
that it will pre-populate that in terms of what was due to be happening at the meeting.
Correct.
And then you can just say, tick, yes, it happened, tick, yes, it happened, this is who did what in that ceremony. So it's not a case of you having to do two separate things.
No.
Once you've generated the business for the meeting,
Correct.
which you do anyway on your summons.
Yes. It will just ask
the
you a series of
post-meeting report,
questions that relates to what you had in the agenda creation. Yes.
Because there have been a few concerns. I'm sure you've had these before, where the post meeting report is obviously something that's relatively new. Although, as far as I'm aware, we've had them for quite a while, called minutes. But the post meeting report is something which is obviously feels new. And I think there's some concern in terms of the work input into that. But as far as I understand it, most of that will be pre-populated. You can
Andrew, to allay the concerns of some of your secretaries and scribes on this call, it will be a 10-minute job at most. Everything will be pre-populated, everything. So if you've got an initiation and an election meeting, all those questions will already be there, and it'll be a simple tick box. Was the ballot successful? Yes. Was the candidate initiated? Yes. That's it. Then it'll go to a drop down for the ceremony, and it'll display the various component parts, and it'll be a kind of drag and drop process. So you can populate who did what in the ceremony. So that will, if you like, take the longest, but as you quite rightly said, you've got that in your written minutes anyway. So it shouldn't be too onerous.
Can I just, we talked a lot about joining members and them entering their Grand Lodge reference number. Yeah. In the case of a entered apprentice or fellowcraft joining, for whatever reason, will they still have to obtain a fellowcraft or entered apprentice certificate from London, or how will that work?
Okay, there still will be a requirement for that, although as you may have noticed if you read the QC paper for tomorrow, that there is, they've changed, you're now able to visit a lodge up to 3 times. Okay, yep. So this is getting around the way that it works now. So you can, as an entered apprentice or as a fellowcraft, go to visit only one lodge up to 3 times, and you could, as a degree by request, be passed and or raised, and then at the 3rd meeting you join the lodge. Yep. So that's designed to get over that particular process. And again, if the lodge has been erased, it'll automatically filter through to Grand Lodge just to provide that certificate. but there's a whole load of background processes if he's, you know, left and he's in arrears. So it'll come out in the training, but those points have been covered within Hermes. Yes.
Good.
Can I just backtrack 1 second on this email thing, because I can see a lot of people are getting quite hot under the collar over this. Okay, I honestly don't believe that it's as big a issue as you may think. If somebody, you know, has a son that's more proficient using emails, all he has to do is put that as his email address, and you know, it can be done. So, and in the case of a secretary that may not be, you know, that IT literate, we've also built in that an assistant secretary can be appointed to process Hermes online. So we have thought about these things. This isn't, you know, us being completely unhelpful and dictatorial.
There will only be one login per lodge and chapter, though, won't there?
Correct.
Correct. Yeah. I'm just scrolling through the questions. Like I say, that there were some process questions which I think until, you know, we see it and we get our hands on it and start playing with them, actually those kind of questions aren't are going to be either difficult to answer, or they will be just, yes, there is the function to do that. And I'm thinking of the approval of the annual returns in particular, that being kind of transferring to the secretary and the treasurer rather than the master, and how that will actually look and work is I suspect down to when we get it, we can actually see it and play.
Again, having seen it many times in open lodge, when the secretary says, "Oh, worshipful master, would you like to sign the annual return?" I mean, he doesn't even look at it; he just signs it. So, yeah. Thank you, Chris Taylor. You're agreeing with me. I can see you nodding. So at least this way, the person that knows more about the accounts and memberships is the treasurer, and that's why we've shifted the responsibility to him to approve it.
Excellent. I'm just scrolling through the screens now to see if there's anybody waving at me in particular, or frantically waving. Oh, Roy Hennage, just ask you to unmute. Roy.
You did mention about people that are IT literate. I've got 3 members of the chapter who's nobody can in their own household won't have a computer. What am I going to do with them? I have to send post out every chapter meeting to these 3 people.
Okay. Well, that won't change. I mean, Hermes is just the way that you're administering the affairs of your chapter. So, you know, if they have got no access to a computer, they'll have to either tell you at the chapter meeting they've changed address, or they're resigning, or they'll write you a letter. I mean, or pick up the phone. You know, that's not going to change. The only difference, as you've picked up from some of the processes I've talked about, particularly, you know, for being the master, the treasurer, and proposer seconder, because of the online processes, you will need to have an email address and access to a computer online, or you do it on your phone. I mean, you'll still be able to see it on your phone. You don't even have to have a computer. You have a laptop or a tablet. It'll work on all of those screens.
Andrew Makin.
Yeah, I found this whole thing very interesting. If a little optimistic, having sat through many new systems coming in, both in industry and in the NHS, and they never go quite as smoothly as the people tell us they will do. But I thought you dismissed the non-computer literate amongst us very flippantly. And can I give you an example? We have a 90-year-old member who's celebrated his 50 years in Freemasonry. Now, he's a very active 90-year-old member. He is rock solid on his ritual. He can do all the tracing boards and does. He can step into any office in the lodge at a moment's notice with great skill. I've now got to tell him that he's now a second-class member of the lodge.
No,
Because he
not-
can't. No, hang on, let me finish.
Andrew, you've got that
Let me
completely
finish,
wrong.
please. Because you've said he can no longer go for any of the offices. Now, we're a very small lodge, and it's very possible that we might have to recycle Jim through one of the offices of the lodge. Now, nobody in his household, because his wife is even older than him, would be able to have an address. So he's now a second-class Mason and can't do it.
Okay, Andrew, I think you're actually pushing this point much further than I actually said. A master, the secretary, and the treasurer are the three offices in a lodge that needs to have an email address. I've never said anything about any other officer requiring an email address. Never. So I think you misheard what I said, and that is written in the Book of Constitutions, which is going to be put to Grand Lodge in March, following the notice of motion tomorrow.
It's
So
clearly
that's what we're asking.
it's clearly something which has been covered a lot and thought a lot about in terms of the process of it, but also how the number of people that do have access to it, and there will be the opportunity for people who don't have access to the email to still participate fully in the lodge life. It's not there's no question of that. As far as my understanding about it, just in terms of the training, Nigel's covered a lot of the resources which will be available, and we will be doing both in-person and online training as well. So it will be, and that will be a rolling program as well. We're not just going to do this once. We appreciate that it's not going to be there you are, you've had it, off you go. It will be going on because obviously as secretaries change and there is the natural turnover of offices in that, we are certainly planning on doing it on a rolling basis as well. So it's not going to be the case that if you miss the training next August, for argument's sake, that it won't be accessible to you at all. No, we are aware that it will need to be an ongoing process. One of the reasons why we've introduced Hermes to secretaries and scribes both in the summer and again now, just as a reiteration, is we appreciate that this isn't going to be for everybody. And in order to encourage the succession planning within the lodge, we want everybody to be able to continue doing the job for as long as they can, as long as they feel they can. We appreciate that this just isn't everybody's bag. And one of the things why we want to do is give plenty of time and reassurance that the training will be there. So if people can continue as long as they want to and as long as they're willing to consider secretary. I think that we had probably 10% of people after the July session said, this will be my last year as secretary. The majority of people says, so be it. And then 10% of the people said, I want it now as soon as possible, please. When can I have it? Please, please, please now. So there are three different schools on this, and we appreciate that. But that's why we are giving you as much notice as possible and helping you understand the scope of it now, rather than it coming as a surprise next summer going, oh, by the way, you need to do this now. So you can consider what it's going to be. But as I've said, a lot of the processes on it, I know Paul Brenton had a little bit of an issue with there being 13 processes, a rather unlucky number of processes on it. Couldn't you have added a one or taken one away? But I think that is certainly something that we're looking forward to developing. But I don't think there's anything that people should lose sleep over in this. uh,
No.
the majority of the Masonic systems, Masonic administration was designed probably in the 19th century, and we're bypassing the 20th and going straight into the 21st, I think, with this. So I don't think there's any demons in this for anybody.
And actually, it might be interesting for you all to know. We Andy Croce and I, we ran a report on Adelphi to find out the average age of a lodge secretary and the average age of a chapter scribee in the whole of UGLE and SBC. So the average age of a secretary is 62 years old, and the average age of a scribee is 68. Now, when we broke that down, less than 10%, a lot less than 10% of those secretaries and scribes were 80 plus. So the majority of them are younger. And realistically, I mean, look, my dad and my mum are in their late 80s. Both of them have email addresses. Both of them are looking at emails on their phone as well as on a tablet. Okay, the average secretary, I'm 64. Okay, you know, we are all using technology today, and I know you're hammering the point at me, and I don't really genuinely do not think this is a bigger issue as you think it is. You know, I don't want to talk any more about, you know, no email addresses, because, you know, it's seriously, we're building a system fit for the 21st century. And this system will be in place for, you know, many years. And we cannot, the paper system is defunct, laborious, time consuming, inefficient. So that's what's driving Hermes.
Paul Renton, speak of the devil, Paul Renton.
Thank you, Andrew. I see this from two sides. I was a lodge secretary for a really good number of years. I say it's three sides, actually. I was involved in education with a responsibility for information technology. And I also worked helping out at the provincial office, trying to interpret some of the forms that came in from across the province. So I've got a pretty wide perspective. If I go back to the secretarial job, I wish this system had been in place when I was the lodge secretary. All the hours I spent trying to type into forms or write forms manually or whatever, heaven forbid, this has got to be a far greater step forward than anything in masonry from an administrative point of view that we have done for years. So, okay, it's going to be difficult for some. I don't have to underestimate that. I've seen some of the comments where people with an IT background, and I know that, where you say, oh, we'll roll it out, you know, whatever. I mean, look what happened with the medical profession and and all the rest of it would roll out. So, but hey ho, we've got to get on board with this and embrace it, because it will save us an enormous amount of time. And from the provincial office point of view, if I was to tell you some of the stories of some of the stuff that came into the provincial office, which we had to try and interpret, I can understand fully why those sort of spider diagrams that you put forward, Nigel, were exactly what happened. What looks like a straightforward process just went haywire. So I would just encourage everybody to put to one side their reservations. I don't doubt the difficulties that some people will have in taking this on board, but surely in this modern society, we've got to take on board what's being offered to us from the result of Hermes to get it going. So that's my three penneth. Let's see what happens. I look forward to supporting people with their trials and tribulations, which undoubtedly there will be when you get to grips with the practicalities. But we've got to embrace it. Brethren and companions, we've got to embrace it.
Thank you, Paul.
Give that man a cigar. Thank you.
I would point out as well that in this province, we already do a lot of our stuff online. You already tell us about your list of officers, about your officers for the year online. You complete that form and fill that in for us. You already tell us about your membership changes, whether that's resignations, deaths, or changes of address. You already do that online, and you receive a confirmation email when you get back to it. The principle is the same. You already apply for your dispensations online. All of that functionality which Hermes takes over, it's not a case of it being massively different on many of the functions which we already do and undertake online. I said before about how you pay your registration fees for new initiates and new exaltees. Already you pay that after the date, not when you submit the form. It's things that you already do, and you do them online. We are by far and away a lot further on than other provinces are in terms of. For a start off, there are other provinces where not every secretary has an email address, and we've insisted on that for a number of years. Well, since before I started, that secretaries and scribes have email addresses for the lodges, or at least an email contact. So we are significantly further on than some of the other provinces. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that, Nigel. That a lot of the processes that we already do, and what we already have in place, puts us, a little bit further ahead than quite a few other provinces.
Absolutely, it's certainly, you've embraced technology already in your province, and that will stand you in very good stead as Hermes goes live. Absolutely.
So I think we've covered everything. I'm just kind of just scrolling through quickly just to see.
I did see a question about a degree by request from a while ago, and the answer is yes. A degree by request will be actioned via Hermes, and it will. The reason why it will do that is that it will enable you to populate your summons for a member from another lodge, and likewise in the post-meeting report, if he's being raised, for example, you'll click on saying yes, he was raised, even though he's not a member of your lodge, and it'll send that information to the mother lodge, enabling the Grand Lodge certificate to be ordered and authorized. So yeah, it's all that has been thought through and thoroughly integrated into Hermes.
Thank you, Nigel. We'll wrap up there. Thank you very much to everybody for attending, and especially to those who are joining us from other provinces. I hope you've enjoyed your time in West Lancashire, albeit virtually this time, and haven't been able to enjoy our usual hospitality. But thank you very much for your attending, Nigel. It's always good to hear from you. I hope that you'll be back relatively soon to be able to maybe do a mop-up session or another update. Maybe kind of in another 3 or 4 months' time, perhaps, just to see where we are. But thank you for being here. Once again,
don't publicize it too much. There might be a lynch mob waiting for me.
Once again, if anybody has any questions for Nigel, they can email hermes@ugle.org.uk. That's hermes@ugle.org.uk. Probably one of the best people at UGLE for replying quickly. So thank you, Nigel. I know you are willing to take questions and comments on board via the email.
No
so thank you very much for being here this evening, brethren. I hope that you found it beneficial, eye-opening, and hopefully exciting, and not too daunting. I hope that you're looking forward to it rather than feeling that this may be the end as a secretary for you. We feel it's a positive step for certain. As I said, that there aren't any demons in this for anybody. We haven't started planning the training yet, other than to say yes, it will be a rolling program, and it will be available both in person and online, as well as the resources which UGL are producing as well. So thank you for being here, brethren, and Nigel, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you all. Take care. Happy New Year to you all.